Drop the ball down.
All right, and just like that, we are back. Hey, everybody, welcome to This Pink Cloud. I am DJ Kelly Reverb, RSPS, which is Recovery Support Peer Specialist. Let's see. I have a Mantra Recovery shirt on. If you hadn't checked that episode out, be sure and go back and check out that episode. It was fantastic. CJ and Adam, good dudes, doing good things. And then, of course, sitting in with me today, just so you know, we're a show on recovery, in case you didn't know that, and where we celebrate multiple pathways, and we also like to put spotlights on things that are working in the recovery community. Anyway, now, sitting next to me, the one, the only, Chad Lamons.
Yeah, dude. I'm leaving this. DJ/cool guy is what my tag says.
Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Well, you're not.
I'm not cool.
I notice you're not rocking the shades, so
no,
you're not as.
I just want to be able to look the world in the eyes now.
There you go. I like it. But hey, thanks for coming out. And Chad is running the board and co-hosting the show with me now. So I'm excited about that. Thank you for coming out, because I know you're coming out from McKinney.
Yeah.
Shout out to your sober living, correct?
Yeah, dude. Fresh start sober living, dude.
There you go. Love it. Well, and then last week, if you caught the episode, we had Kyle and Lance from the Men of Nehemiah. That's right. And it was supposed to actually be Rand, but Rand is sick right now, so he's got a little touch of the vid. But we hope he's going to be okay. But his former partner in crime, I like to say. Mr. Ty Choice,
what's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
You were with the Men of Nehemiah, and you're still affiliated with them.
Always will be, man. Always will be. That's where I like to say God transformed my life. That's where I found recovery over 10 years ago.
Right.
One of the founding graduates from that.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, and then you're also with Austin Street Center, which is a huge asset, which we'll get into later.
Right on.
But since we had the Men of Nehemiah on, you were one of the OGs from Men of Nehemiah, because Men of Nehemiah started in 2010.
That's correct.
And you were there at its conception.
I was.
You were the guinea pig, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, it did.
Tell us your story, because it's fascinating. You were on the street for 15 years. Yeah. How does that happen, and how is somebody still alive?
It's a crazy journey, man. Starting out here in Dallas in the local scene, I started doing music when I was younger. Got introduced to the Deep Ellum scene, and I didn't really see a problem, man. I thought, this is what everybody does. We're doing a little drinking, a little smoking pot, simple stuff like that. But eventually, circles turn into other circles, and I was introduced to some more harder stuff, and I started traveling, and didn't really understand that I was an addict. I just thought that I was just having fun, right? And,
right. It all starts out fun, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We're just clubbing, Lizard
Sure.
Lounge, doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
Popping pills, and eventually, man, as time went on, it just became so unmanageable, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously,
so you said you were traveling. Like, as far as traveling, like, what were you doing?
I got a record deal at like 17.
Okay.
With Raucous Records, and started traveling the East Coast doing hip hop.
Okay.
And when you're young and you're a rap artist or whatever, the clubs were just give you a bar tab, give you drugs, and I thought that was the cool thing. I got the hookup. I got the hookup from city to city. But by the time the tour ended, And by the time that all ended and I got back to Dallas, man, I was a full-fledged addict. And I didn't understand, like, why do I feel sick? What is going on? I need some more drugs in order to feel normal.
Right.
And it spun out of control. By the time I was 23 years old, man, I caught my first felony and was on my way to prison. And by the time
And what was your DOC during this time? Or how did your DOC progress?
It started with weed, and then it jumped up to, like, you know, Vicodin pills, and then it took off, you know, a heavy alcohol, a little coke, and then the cocaine became a lot of cocaine, right? And then someone said, hey, Ty, in order to balance all that out, you might want to do what they call monkey water, which is heroin and water. And so, you know,
to balance
it out,
that's a good friend for you,
right?
There.
And
yeah, you might want to try some monkey water.
So by the time I got back to Dallas, I was a full-fledged heroin addict, man, and started selling dope, and I got caught. And so I went to prison. And I got out of prison, man, and the problem just continued to progress, man. It wasn't like...
How long were you in for?
I did, like, the first time I did, like, 2.5 years.
Okay, and then...
And I got out, and I was just right back at it.
Yeah, because there was no
recovery.
Right.
Just me doing time, sitting there, you know, lifting weights, shooting the shit with like everybody else does.
Right.
Yeah.
Learning how to commit crimes.
Yeah, exactly.
And got out, man, and the problem just continued to progress, and that's where the homelessness started, man. It is my family. They love me, and I want to give a shout out to my family. You know, a lot of them are no longer with me, but they love me, man, but they couldn't have me living in their home like that. I mean, I was a threat. I was a thief. I never want to shy away from my real truth, and my story is that I really took advantage of the people that I said I loved the most, right?
Yep.
So moms, grandmom, grandfather, all them caught it the worst, right? You know, nobody's purse was safe. Nobody's TV was safe in the house. So they eventually put a protective order on their home, and I hit the streets, right? And, you know, I stayed on the streets for a long time, man. It got so dark, you know, in and out. So every once in a while I'd have little places, you know, homeboys or little spots, apartments and stuff like that. But for the most part, man, it was, you know, surfing couch to couch, trying to find ways and means to use, you know. And it got real bad, man, for the last 7 or 8 years of my addiction. I slept under I-45 bridge. I slept, you know, in the alleys, tents, and I became accustomed to this Dallas homeless circuit, right?
Yep.
And, you know, Dallas Life, you know, great organization. The Bridge Homeless Shelter, great organization. You know, all these different shelters, Salvation Army, great organization. I stayed in all those places, but I was what you call shelter resistant, or what it was is I was such a severe drug addict that I could not be contained. And so if you told me to go inside and that meant that I'm going to have to face withdrawal, then, you know, I'd rather stay outside
Freeze to death.
and take my chances. Take my chances, because if somebody comes through at 2 a.m, I need to be there to get that, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And so, you know, that was my way of thinking, and it really made me almost animalistic.
Absolutely.
You know, I became a street person to the point of where if at that time, if you would have saw me walking down the street, you would have crossed the street, because I was.
You were saying that you like to present as shitty as possible.
Yeah.
And like,
I wanted
stains.
There's an art to this, man. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
You know, survival is an art form.
Yeah.
And I had been, you know, I had learned how to position myself in a way that if you saw me, I wanted you to think that this person needed help so bad that you were willing to go in your wallet or your purse and hand me money, in which I was just going to go use with.
Yeah.
And so I love downtown. Downtown around lunchtime was a prime time for me. So I would walk around downtown and people would be on their lunch break, and I would present myself as this, in which I was, as this dirty, lifeless, hopeless individual that needed you to help immediately. And if you gave me money,
I would go away quicker.
I would go away quicker.
And then I would not have to have you on my conscience.
Yeah. And it was it was a very dark. It's far beyond humbling, but it was a very embarrassing, dark struggle.
Yeah.
And I had given myself over to it. And so I no longer, every once in a while being down here, I would see guys and ladies that I went to high school with, and they'd be like, oh my God. And, unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Until I say, hey, Jenny, I remember you from high school. And they're like, oh my God, Ty. And, teeth rotted out, 86 pounds, needle marks down my neck, mismatched shoes, hair in just one matte dread, smelling like, urine from sleeping under bridges, eating out of dumpsters down here.
Not your best look.
Definitely not my best look. Not my best look. And so that went on for years. It went on for years. If I got arrested, I used to say that I got rescued.
Right.
And I would okay, now I can gain some weight.
Well, that's something people actually do, and I never really heard about it until I got into recovery. But people, what they do is bed hop.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing.
It's a real thing, man. Go to rehab, with no real intention of recovery, but just I'm going to get some rest. I'm going to get my weight back up a little bit, and then I'm going to find someone new that I could take advantage of.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was my way of living, man. And I did it from state to state. I didn't just do it in Dallas. I did it in Sacramento. I did it in Portland. I did it in Montana. I did it in Boston. I did it in Atlanta. I did it in Austin. I traveled.
All right, so I got to ask, where was your favorite place to be homeless?
None, man. I mean, that sucks. There is no.
But Sacramento seems like it would be nice.
Sacramento was
There's a lot,
but
of,
it
lot
gets
of people
cold.
out
but
there that
but it was just it's still the same brokenness.
Yeah.
It's still the same. People look at you like you're like less than an animal.
Yeah.
They treat you as if you're not equal, or they make you. I've had people spit on me. I've had people punch me. Just for asking for money. I've had people, I've been jumped, beaten. While I was asleep, I've been attacked. These are things that I experienced while I was homeless. And it was very, very, I remember people would sometimes talk to me and it would scare me. Because human interaction was so far removed.
Oh, wow.
So just to say, hey, man, how you doing? What?
Yeah.
And it was like
I didn't do nothing.
I had to learn how to communicate
Wow.
again with people, because I just lived in the isolated bubble of just using and trying to find a safe place to lay down.
Sure.
And so, years and years of doing that, I never really knew how to interact with people. And so, homelessness was a big part of my story. And, my family, I don't ever want, my family loved me, man. My mom and my grandmother, they loved me, and they would meet me down here and, bring me a shirt or, some cash sometimes, and just to make sure I was still alive.
Right, but they had to set those borders in order in order to actually self-preservation, really.
Yeah, I was, my name is Ty, and my family, they called me Tyrant. And it was because of just the ability of abuse.
Oh yeah, you would just make them feel like shit for trying to help you.
I told my 70-year-old grandmother, who was the sweetest woman I've ever known in my life, I've told her, either pay me or pay the window man, because I'm gonna bust the window and it's gonna cost you more money to replace the window than it would be for you just to give me $10 to leave. And that's how I treated my family, man.
Wow.
So that tells you how much I cared about myself.
Right.
Right? If I'm willing to treat those people that cared for me the most, I hated myself, man. I hated myself, and I truly wanted to die. And so that's why I tell people all the time, I went so hard in the paint. I went extremely hard in the paint with addiction because I had this epiphany, right? And I seen some of the harder drugs that I was hanging out with people, they were twice my age. And they were like, man, what are you doing this young, doing this stuff? And I said, because I'm not an idiot. What I plan on doing is I'm either going to go as hard as I can, where I either die or I stop. And so I didn't want to play with it. While everybody else was just, maybe doing a little bit, I was like shooting up in my neck. And while everybody else was like smoking a little bit, I was trying to have a heart attack. It was all about pushing it to that limit, because I knew that if I played with this, it was going to drag out.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to stop, or I wanted to die.
Yep.
So I didn't have no fear of death, and I didn't have no fear of consequence. I've been to prison 3 times. I've been to jail 31 times. I've been to 15 rehabs. So consequence I wasn't fearful of that.
Did any of that during that time? Did any of that almost take, or did you have like a 2-month window of sobriety?
I did. I mean, I learned, when I look back at the journey, man, I learned a lot from different people. And they all spoke into my life, and I picked up little tools here and there. But the application of complete surrender, I didn't have that, because I was such a stubborn, rebellious person, right? And so I had a little bit of an intellect. So when you have a little bit of intellect, they say that recovery is not, if you're you can be too smart for recovery.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so
I think aren't we all a little too smart for recovery?
I got this.
Right,
I've read a few books.
At some point.
Yeah, I've read a few books.
Right.
And so, I like to say that God had to strip me, and it almost killed me. It almost killed me. But at the end of the road, man, I was sleeping behind a dumpster in Pleasant Grove. And I was, about 82 pounds, size 27 waist.
Been there, dude.
Yeah.
Got you. I got you on the 26, 27 waist, dude.
Unrecognizable, man. And I had given up on life. And something happened, man. I was behind this dumpster, and I looked up into the sky, and I said, listen, God, I don't know if this is real. I've always been a cynic. So I was like, God, look.
If you're out there.
If there is a God. And if you're real, I need you to do something, because I'm ready to go back to prison. I feel more freer in prison. I feel more freer if I'm locked up, and I can no longer live like this anymore. And man, something happened. Yeah. And I don't believe in bright lights or deep, it wasn't like, in no
burning
movie.
bush or anything.
It wasn't nothing like that, but it was this intense sense of peace that came over me, and I went to sleep like I ain't slept like that in years. I just laid down behind that dumpster and was out. And the next morning, I heard some guys talking around that dumpster, and when it startled me, I woke up, and I didn't have a dope sickness when I woke up. That's strange. Like I didn't have a dope sickness or a craving. And when I came around that dumpster, there was these guys dressed in these military uniforms. And I was like, man, are y'all the police? And
Right.
And it kind of startled them, and it startled
Sure.
me at the same time, because I was like, yo, it's cops. And they were like
Right.
startled because I looked so crazy. And they were like, no, we don't want no problems. And I was like, I don't want them either. And they were like, no, we're a new ministry here in Dallas called the Men of Nehemiah, and we're just trying to stay sober. And we're believing that God can help us. And I was like, whoa. And I just started crying.
All right.
And they surrounded me, man. And they said a prayer for me, and I got in that van.
Yeah.
And 10 years later, y'all, this is where I'm at, right? 10 years sober, 10 years clean, and I like to say that God cheated for me, man, because He brought the rehab to the dumpster.
Oh yeah.
He didn't wait for me to try to get myself, because He knew, like, this one of mine right here, He needs somebody to go pick him up, right?
Well, and we were just shout out to Men of Nehemiah.
Oh, yeah, shout out.
We were talking to them earlier, because not only are they just like one of those wait and come to us, they're actually out there in the field, and they actually went out there and rescued you.
And that's where my journey began.
Yeah.
Where we're going to get into this Austin Street Center, man, where I'm the operational lead there. And, my passion and my commitment is to everyone, but I have a special interest in those that are walking the streets, those that are sleeping outside, those that everyone says, honey, let's cross the street. Here he comes.
Right.
Those that say, did you smell that guy? Did you see that lady? I love those people because I understand that there's greatness in them. And what I've learned over the years is that we title people homeless, But I don't believe that anyone is homeless. I believe that everyone is experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
Right? So no one's homeless. No one was born homeless, right?
sure.
Everyone had a family. Everyone had something. And whatever it was, mental illness, addiction, whatever it was, hard times, or if it's a combination of all, is they're right now experiencing homelessness. And if you can build a relationship with a person and stop calling them the homeless guy on the corner, but get a chance to know him, that's Jeff. Jeff has 2 sisters. He's from Boston. He's no longer the homeless guy. That's Jeff.
Right.
Right? And so when you build relationships with people, then you can take the title of homelessness out of it. And then they'll receive the help that we can so desperately give them with recovery, right? And so, my passion is for that. Even at Men of Nehemiah, I was always that's me. I'm that guy. Even today, right? I'm the outreach guy. Like when they have a need to go out, they call me. Ty, look, I need you to go out, bring some men. I need you to go out, share this message. And see, for me, man, no one thought that a guy sleeping behind the dumpster would be so impactful. And so I'm always looking for the next guy, the next woman, the next CEO, the next person that's going to start a rehab, the next person that's going to, that's going to carry this message to because the 2 guys that you had on last week, Kyle and Lance, I remember when those guys came into Men of Nehemiah. And I remember encouraging them and telling them, "Hey, man, I come from behind a dumpster. If I can do it, you can do it."
Yeah.
And you know what? To watch what God is doing in their lives,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And how they're impacting other people. So that's what I do, man. I like the rawness.
Right.
I didn't do anything a little bit, and I don't do anything a little bit now.
Right. Yeah. And the rawness, you definitely have the credentials because you navigated that, and it's hard to wrap my brain around. 15 years of just not having a place to lay your head, man. That's
it's
just
tough, man.
It's insane that you made it,
but
now you have that experience to share.
Well,
And there's a couple things about that the shit you're saying, dude, hits home so hard. You know
Right
what
on,
I mean?
right on.
About because it's like that study they did with the mice that had the water with the cocaine and stuff, and whenever they were doing it and they were by themselves, they kept doing the cocaine water, and then when there was other mice around them, they didn't even think twice about it. The community and that accountability and everything else that that Men of Nehemiah does for people. But not only that, you were saying, having intellect, it's a very dangerous thing, and it leads a lot to addiction because we got it. You know what I mean? That's our generation was raised, figure it the fuck out.
Right.
And so we always think we have a leg up, so to speak. I say that I have a fake leg. So I love
He's
saying
got a
that.
prosthetic.
But
one leg jokes.
yeah,
we
we think we have that, and then it becomes impossible to notice or to give credit for moments that you think are supposed to be burning bush moments type shit. You know, it becomes impossible to recognize that when it's happening,
Right.
until you finally surrender that whatever it is, whatever intellect you have to let it go, because that shit's been happening the whole time. You just haven't seen it.
Right.
And then so when you have a moment like the dumpster one, and you said you started crying, it becomes impossible to ignore and label it as coincidence anymore in your brain. And that's what's so powerful, dude, about a ministry like that reaches out, because there's a difference between powerlessness and hopelessness.
Right.
You know? And you become so powerless that you feel hopeless, but the hope is there.
Right.
You just you're distorted.
You don't know how to recognize it.
And you guys are going out there and
Right.
in the trenches, like he said.
Well, at the end of the day, man, look, to make some sense of the wreck of life that I did to myself, right? Then I can't see myself doing anything else, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you can only keep what you have by giving it away, right?
Absolutely.
So people ask me all the time, Ty, why do you work at the shelter? Why do you do that? That seems like a really crazy gig. And I'm like, you don't understand. You don't understand. You have no idea that I see myself every day I
You
see
have that constant
myself.
reminder.
I see
Yeah.
myself every day, and I was actually worse than anybody at the shelter that I see,
Right.
because those guys are at least willing to like lay down. I'm like trying to steal your cell phone and leave immediately.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, and so I was banned. You know, it's a trip, man. I was banned from most shelters in Dallas because of my erratic behavior. And you know, well, the funny thing about God to me is that like I spent so much time praying and I hated shelters. I hated rehab. I hated those things. And I was like, man, I can't believe this. I got a funny story. I was staying at a shelter in Dallas. I'm not going to say the name. And I got bit they had a bed bug infestation. Right? So I got bit up. I stayed the night there and I got bit up by bed bugs. And I couldn't think of anyone to call but my sponsor. And he's been my sponsor for over 15 years. I got 10 years clean. So it tells you that he stuck with me.
God bless that man.
He stuck with me. He's still there for me. Right.
Yeah.
And so I called him and I was like, yo, you're not going to believe this. I got bit by bed bugs. This place is unsanitary. I cannot believe that they would let us stay in these type of conditions. It's messed up. And he said, well, Todd, didn't you tell me that you spent like $800 smoking crack last week?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. What the hell does that got to do with me getting bit by bed bugs? He goes, it has everything to do with it. He said, matter of fact, bed bugs aren't your problem. Bed bugs are the result of your problem. And he said, as long as you if you're focusing on bed bugs, you're going to have to continue to deal with bed bugs. But if you actually focus on the solution, then you'll never deal with another bed bug again. Yep. And of course, at that time, I got mad, man, F you. Of course, you know,
that is not the answer I wanted to
But those were
hear.
those God moments, right? Where he was speaking to me and he was using people to do it. So therefore, that's what I love doing. Is, you know, and I like to say I have a doctorate's degree in streetology.
Yeah.
So from every substance to mental health to everything I experienced, and at the rawest, lowest form. So when God cleans you up, and like I was joking earlier, man, I hated shelters, I hated rehabs, and then God cleans me up, recovery comes into my life, and then he's like, okay, now I want you to go manage a shelter.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, damn. But, you know, the interesting thing is you get to go home at night, you know, but I've never left I've never left the shelter, I've never left the rehab and felt like that I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And, absolutely.
You know.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, let's throw to our sponsor. That would be thispinklawyer.com.
Come on.
That is actually Lone Star Injury Attorneys. They practice here in Texas and in California. Ask for Max the Axe. They will get you maximum results on your personal injury case. And Chad can speak that he is a good dude.
Yes, he is an absolutely fantastic dude. He's helping me out with something right now, too.
Actually knows what he's talking about. So go to thispinklawyer.com. That will take you to their website, which is Lone Star Injury. So shout out to Max, and then also our new sponsor, which is NeuroGlow, which is ketamine infusion therapy.
Yeah.
And that is NeuroGlow, NeuroGlow.com. If you go to them, go to their website. They have Flower Mound, and they also have one in McKinney, and they microdose in a clinical setting ketamine, and it supposedly helps with PTSD and also suicidal ideology, and they've also seen great results in people that are treatment resistant as far as conventional ways of addiction.
Yeah.
So check out neuroglow.com, and now back to the show.
And I know I shout him out like all the time, and I might like be like hell yeah or whatever, but there's so much science like backing that now,
right?
That it's become, because everybody wants tangibility.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
With everything,
Everybody needs numbers.
everybody needs numbers. So the numbers are there now.
Right.
So it's not you know, it's not like it used to be, and it's
Sure.
the stigma's coming down and everything, because mental health is like
real.
very real.
Yeah, and it's
very
real,
real.
and it's definitely, you know this probably as well as I do, but it's co-occurring
Yeah,
in
dual
most
diagnosed.
cases. Yeah.
So I remember one time, of course, you know, when you have a fully furnished apartment and within 2 weeks it's bone dry, people around you think there is something mentally off with this guy. And so my mother, she bribed me with $20. And I'm not trying to ever, let me say this, I got to share this right, because I believe that mental health is real and medication is real. And I believe that if a doctor prescribes you medicine, take your medicine.
Yeah.
Right? But at this time I was in a bender 2-year bender, and she took me to the place, the doctor's office, and they had me waiting this thing, and I'm been up for a couple of days, and so I filled out this form, and the doctor said, you know what, Mr. Choice, it looks like here that you're definitely bipolar. And I said, And I said, well, what is that? Now, of course, I was being, kind of sarcastic.
Yeah.
Right.
I knew I've heard the term before.
Sure.
But I was trying to get the $20 from my mom. And so she
You had to make it look good.
yeah, so she said to me, well, it's when you have extreme ups and downs. One second you're extremely excited, the next second you're extremely low and depressed. And I said, well, that makes extreme sense to me. And she said, yeah, I know, we got medicine for that. And I said, well, let me tell you why. Because I'm extremely excited and happy when I have crack, and I'm very depressed when I don't. And then she's like, looked at me, but I say that to say that, I was mentally unstable, man, sleeping on the streets, eating out of dumpsters, being violently attacked, not having a safe place to go, not having a warm place to lay, worrying about if I'm going to get rained on, worrying about if the cops are just going to come and harass us, just trying to constantly migrating, moving from one bridge to one tree to one dumpster to one place, never really having any type of community, even though there was a community, but it was like not a community.
No,
if you
it's
understand
not.
what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
it was
I know
like
exactly what
probably
you're saying.
that community is in the same spot you are.
Yeah.
Because they're looking out for their
Right.
next
Right.
their best interest.
Everybody is all about
Yeah.
themselves. And I understand it today, a lot differently. And so, throughout all that experience, man, I've now come to understand and to serve that population at my most maximum capacity, right? Like, I understand the mindset. I understand why people prefer or even can't stop the homeless process, right? And so, at Austin Street Center, I want to give a shout out to
Yeah,
Austin
well,
Street Center.
what you were saying though, real quick, why do you think, like I mean, I know you elaborated on that, but when you say to somebody, oh well, they can get a job, well, what do you say to that person with that mindset? Oh well, that person can get a job.
Yeah.
I mean, they're hiring at McDonald's right now. Why don't? So what would you say to that person?
I like to say that everyone doesn't start at the same point of the race. Not everyone starts at the same point of the race, man.
Right.
And some people experience trauma and process it differently. So if you were abused in your home, if you didn't have a stable home, if you were your coping skills were reduced, and so substance abuse, or if you're dealing with long-term mental health and hasn't been treated.
Yeah.
So how are you going to comprehend going to just
Go
go to
do
get
a job, right,
man?
yeah.
I got so much stuff that I'm so far behind the race that I need help just catching up to the beginning. The beginning.
I need help just
right?
brushing my teeth and
And
general
so
hygiene.
it's not
yeah.
that easy. It's
Yeah.
not like go get a job and situations will change. Yeah, I'm gonna go get a job, but then where I'm gonna sleep tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where who's gonna wash my clothes if I go to work tomorrow wearing the same thing? Are they gonna let me go? What happens? How am I gonna cash my check? I don't have an ID.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I don't even have a social security card.
Right.
In all due respect, I'm almost like an alien here.
Right. Yeah.
You know
well,
what I mean?
and a lot of people don't realize what you just said.
Right.
As far as that, when they go, "Oh, those people can get a job."
We call them barriers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of barriers that you have to start to help an individual
Right.
before they can even get to the place of let's start looking for
Right,
a job.
and that's what you're facilitating at Austin Street,
That's
right?
exactly what we
Yeah.
do, man. We serve the most vulnerable, and our mission is to provide basic needs, to provide shelter, and to provide a safe place for the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. So our shelter has been in operation since 1983. We house currently about 380 people a night.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
3 meals each day. That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's women. Our men. Let me share with you how it works. So the men have to be 45 and over.
Okay.
So just to let anyone know that's maybe interested or learning a little bit more about Austin Street.
Now, why 45 and over?
Well, because we serve the most vulnerable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our men are a lot older. It's easy to say, yeah, go get a job, but what if you're 60?
Where do you go 45 and under? Just real quick.
45 and under, they have other organizations.
Men of Nehemiah.
Like Men of Nehemiah,
There we go.
definitely. Men
See,
of
I had to get
Nehemiah.
that in there.
Men of Nehemiah
Right.
are there's other shelters in Dallas.
Yeah.
Austin,
24 hour.
24-hour
Yeah.
club. You got the
Right.
bridge and stuff
So
like that.
okay, so 45 and over. Because
45 and over.
I like that. Okay.
And and it's pretty. I will say this: the men that we serve have been experiencing homelessness for a while. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And so we want to reach those men and try to help those men get the services that they need in order to get back on track, right? So, and then we house women that are 18 and over, so no children. So it's women 18 and over, men 45 and over, and no children. And I mean, from anything you could think of, man, from sex traffic to domestic violence, from long-term mental health, substance abuse, mental health.
Well, so how does it work? Does somebody just, magically show up at the door, or do you, or how does it work?
So we do our intakes Monday through Friday, 1 to 4, and people come in, and if there's bed availability, whatever we have,
it's kind of like Homeward Bound. It's like kind of a triage unit,
right?
Kind of
So we kind of screen. We do an intake screening, and once they come in, we get some information about where they are and everything like that, and then we assign them a bed, and immediately we start to address certain barriers, right? We have amazing case management team that works hard on figuring out, what type of needs do they need, and then that's where I come in. I come in with the recovery piece, right?
Absolutely.
And my job is actually operational, so the whole functionality of the shelter, dinner, different groups that are coming in, AA, NA, and all that type of stuff. I'm involved in making sure everybody is in the place that they need to be, the things that they need as far as blankets, basic needs, and I get to really put my hands and I get to really put my heart into each person and knowing who they are, identifying and relating to where they are, and it's just it's a very amazing thing, bro. So,
right, and we were going to talk about this. You were, without sharing names or anything, but you said that you had a story that you were thinking about. As far as like success stories that you've seen, maybe give me one of Ty's choices.
Yeah, man. I have one in particular, a female, about 6 years ago, and she was like me, man. She was unrecognizable. Her hair had turned into one big mat, and she was sleeping in the field across the street from the shelter for many years, and I'd seen her prostituting herself, and then she had recently had a stroke, so the left side of her body was coming back to normal, but it was still paralyzed from substance abuse, and she was just the streets were just dragging her, and I knew she was next to death, and so I finally convinced her to come inside, and she came inside, and we cut her hair, and she still could barely talk a little bit like this, but started attending our recovery meetings. And she sat in the back for her first few meetings. She didn't say anything. She just drank coffee. And then one day she raised her hand, man, and she said, I don't want to get too raw, but she said, I'm tired of doing sex acts for $5 and only getting paid $2. Now, what do you say? Nobody can't say nothing after that. The whole room shut up, and the atmosphere was so thick. The hairs on my arms stood up, and I looked at her because I knew she had no concern about anybody's opinion. She just wanted to be free. She just wanted to be free. And after the meeting, she was helping me clean up, and I looked at her, and I told her, I said, "You'll never use again." And she kind of looked at me, and I said, "I promise, if you keep being that honest and that real, you'll never use again." And just like that, man, the next week her face started getting a little better, her hair started growing back out, and then all of a sudden she started to share more, and I realized how articulate she was, and she told me her story. She said, "Ty, I was a nurse."
Wow.
I haven't seen my kids in 10 years, but addiction robbed me of my career, and I've been sleeping over here in this field for the last 7 years, and no one took the time to work with me, and now I'm starting to, my mind's coming back, and I'm starting to have hope, and I'm starting to talk to our case managers, and I feel like there might be a shot for me. And now she's got 7 years sober.
Wow,
She's the
that's
general
great.
manager of a Walmart. We're good friends, man. She sponsors women. She's a beast in recovery, man. And so, you know, when you see that type of stuff happening, and I get a chance to see that on a daily basis, man,
Right.
I see a lot of darkness, but I also see beacons and hope and light, and I see people's lives come
You
back.
get to see that phoenix rising from the
Come
ashes.
on, man.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing like it when you see someone that doesn't believe in themselves, and then you literally have to believe in them so they can believe in themselves.
Right.
And then you see the take root, and all of a sudden they start to grow and flourish, man. And so that's why I do what I do, man.
Right.
Because, you know, I was voted least likely, least likely to live.
Yeah.
To live, man. And I always tell people, man, as an addict, I get to live 3 amazing lives, man. I get to live the life first that I was raised with, the morals and my family. And then I got that life of addiction and darkness. And then now I got this amazing life of recovery and hope.
Yeah.
And so not too many people get 3 different parts to live.
Yeah.
And so that makes it easier for me to be able to identify with more people, man. And help
Oh,
more
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And real quick, so if people want to actually hit up Austin Street or use the so how does it work? I know you can go to austinstreet.org.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you have, like, people like family members reaching out on behalf of people that are homeless, or is it direct homeless, or is it a mix?
We get all kind of people that, for people that want to get involved with this amazing, amazing place, man, Austin Street. You can go to the website. They have volunteer opportunities from anything from folding clothes to helping serve dinner to coming down and working at the desk with me, man, passing out medications. And, I have a friend of mine that recently started volunteering there because his wife died. And he'd been married for 50-something years, and she died. And so to deal with his grief, he decided that he would come down and serve.
Get outside
Right.
of himself.
Yeah.
Man.
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
And it's just, so a lot of times people do it for a lot of different reasons. But the main reason is I think that people think that they're actually going down there to help them out, and they find out that they're the ones that are getting help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, huh?
And so it is.
Can I bring up one thing
Yeah,
real
go
quick?
ahead.
So we were talking outside, right?
Yeah.
And you, like, the thing that it just changed my life, like, through and through, you hit on, like, almost exactly like how I perceive it, right? And that's like you said that drugs were the best thing that ever happened to you. So you say it in a different way than I do.
Yeah.
But you say that drugs are the best thing that ever happened to you because it brought you to the person you are today.
It is.
And like that, just that level, that's where your intellect comes back. Like all this stuff, you know what I mean? Like the intellect it's rough when you're in the middle of an addiction type thing.
Yeah.
But when you can do the same Jedi mind tricks you did to your brain,
Right.
and then start like looking back and being like, you know what, every little shitty thing that I've been through that I thought was shitty at the time
Right.
was just training me
Exactly.
to be the best that I can possibly be.
Yeah.
And it's like impossible to like just snap your fingers for somebody else, because that's what we want to do,
Right.
is to help other people. But like you're practical with this. Like mercy is not, I forget what it was, something I watched yesterday. But it talks about mercy's not about whatever. Mercy is practical.
It is.
It's not theoretical. It's not that's what it is. It's not theoretical. It's not philosophical. It's practical.
It is.
And like, it's just crazy that I just saw that yesterday, and then you come in here and do this today.
Right.
And like that's when, like, ignoring it like just coincidence. Like it's not. You know what I mean? Like this shit. This is like too real. Like what you're doing at this place, like this Austin Street and at Min and Nehemiah, dude, like you've been that's one of the things that I love about AA is the way that they put it, is you are uniquely qualified
Exactly.
to be able to change lives.
Right.
And you're not doing it, you know what I mean, for there's no motive behind it, dude.
No.
And like,
Other than you're qualified.
other than the
Yeah.
fact that you
Other
know
than-
that you're qualified
Right.
and you fucking use
Well,
it.
I
Right.
actually the motivation I find
Thank
my
you.
motivation is because I've been there and I can relate to that person and I can understand. I'm uniquely qualified to relate to that person
Right.
because of all the shitty stuff I went through.
Exactly,
So,
man.
yeah.
And you know, man, like I said before, man, Austin Street Center is just, there's so much going on in one day that it just gives me this amazing opportunity to use all those experiences every day. I had people coming up to me saying, "Ty, you know, I need a blanket." And I'm like, yeah, I think about the story when okay, well, what'd you do with the blanket that you had last time? And so everything that I've experienced, now they understand and
Yeah.
they know I know.
Right.
And so when someone knows that you know, they're willing to trust you.
Yeah.
It's not something I read in a book. It's
No.
not something I went to school for. This is something that I experienced. And so what I love about Austin Street is we have an amazing team. We have the guys that are there that have the degrees in social work and all that stuff. But we also have, you know, like guys like me, right?
Yeah.
So they go, okay, Ty, what do? We're humble enough to say this is something that we need your expertise in. And so we work together as a group, helping people end their homeless experience.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
That's
Well, dude,
so
I
huge.
I appreciate you coming by. First off, I appreciate what you do. I always
on,
like
right on.
I
Yeah.
always like to shout out because you might not get that thank you from somebody, but
Already, I
you're
appreciate
getting
you.
it from us.
Thank
So,
you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you guys for
Thanks for doing what you do. And obviously, we like to give this part of the show for our guests to give their shout outs or plugs.
Yeah.
So anything you want to shout out to?
Shout out to my beautiful girl over there. Shout out to her. Got Don in the building. I like to say shout out to my mama, man. Shout out to my mama because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. Shout out to my beautiful daughter, Maya. Man, shout out to the men of Nehemiah. And last but not least, shout out to Austin Street Center. Peace.
Absolutely.
Okay, there
man.
we go. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you coming out and making time. I know you got to work today, right?
I do.
Yeah. So we're going to get you out of here. But, Chad, thanks for sitting in. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. This was nuts.
Power fill hour.
Yeah.
There. Yeah. I love it. Okay. Well, hey, remember, guys, there is no magic pill for sobriety because if there was, we would all take too many.
Awesome.
Jumbo. Drop a bomb now.